Suspiria.
That's what I've been singing all
we've been
week.
doing that too.
Suspiria.
Yes.
You gotta watch out for witches. It's Suspiria.
Suspiria. I think that's a great song, and it fits,
Everyone
and it works.
dances. Bum, bum,
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
You know what's so funny? Saying the word horror. Have you guys seen the Coleman Domingo and Pedro Pascal talking about horror? And
Yes.
Pedro was like, I really want to do horror. And Coleman Domingo's like, horror?
What?
You gotta pronounce your words. Horror. Horror. So now every time I say that, I think about that particular thing. Such a good one.
Horror.
But horror. But today is a special day, guys. It is also a first for us. We are doing a double feature. Are you gonna give me? Oh, look, I got confetti. I think that's the first time we've had confetti. I didn't think.
Yeah,
thought it
I
was
think so.
Yeah, fantastic. We love it. YouTubers, you gotta see that on the YouTubes. But we'll be
So
talking
funny.
about the 1977 and 2018 versions of the supernatural horror film Suspiria. Suspiria.
That's what I've been singing all
we've been
week.
doing that too.
Thank you.
Suspiria.
Yes.
You gotta watch out for witches. It's Suspiria.
Suspiria. I think that's a great song, and it fits,
Everyone
and it works.
dances. Bum, bum, bum,
Bum,
bum,
bum, ba-dum, bum.
Yeah.
It works.
Suspiria.
That'll be the outro, which is definitely better than that. What Jamie was singing, whatever that motif was in the 1977 version that came every 5
I don't-
seconds.
Oh, da-da-da.
Yes.
Oh, I liked that. We'll get to that. We'll get into that.
We'll
get
get
into that. Yeah.
Oh my
There's also a lot
gosh.
of
Yes,
that.
and just random yelling. I'm very excited to talk about this. Jamie could do it. Somebody hire Jamie for special effects, sound effects, all of the things. Wonderful. Sorry, I thought you were going to say something, Brian, so I stopped myself.
Oh, I
but-
was, and then I stopped, but I'll say it now.
Please.
Do it.
Yeah, next time we do a narrative podcast episode for this podcast, we'll just have her do the special effects.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes.
in.
Got it.
Crash?
Question mark.
Yeah.
Crash?
Maybe I wasn't sure what really happened, you know?
Hey, there we go.
Fair.
Okay, back to Suspiria. So, the 1977 movie was directed by Dario Argento, and it stars Jessica Harper, while the 2018 movie was directed by Luca Guadagnino, and it stars Dakota Johnson. Both are partially based on the Thomas de Quincey's 1845 essay Suspiria de Profundis. So, heavy spoilers for both of these movies. They are both available for streaming. And Jamie, please hit us with those trigger warnings.
Yeah, I'll do my best
Everything.
to cover all of them. Yeah.
You have a trigger.
Well-
It's in these movies.
Yes, that is true. What did I say before? All right. Witch.
Yes.
These movies are about witches.
Yes.
If you
They
didn't know.
yeah, they're witches. There is a lot of murder that does happen in both of these films. A lot of insides on the outsides. A lot of disturbing. Well, okay, so
Disturbia.
yeah, I can't get away from it. 77, I would say. There's more barbed wire. More. You don't see well, I guess there's like weird close-ups of like stabbing or like barbed wire stuff, but you don't like see the whole person. It's like just a close-up on the stabbing.
Sure.
And then a dog biting a throat. But you don't really see the bite. You see like this much of a dog, like eyes up, eating something.
Yes.
So you're not like quite seeing a dog attack, but it is a dog attack.
Yes.
There's maggots. There's falling through a window. Or skylight, rather.
A window.
Wow, Brian's really on it. Brian's
Yes. This is the soundtrack to the movies,
Suspiria. Well, yeah, it's like a late night infomercial, like for only $14.99, 6 payments of $14.99, you can own the entire Suspiria discography, including hits like Suspiria and, of course, Falling Through a Window.
Buy now.
Buy now.
And then at the end it just says, "Witch."
Yeah.
That's one of the songs.
Yes.
So there's that. There is also a reanimated corpse. And then fire, the occult, conversations about the occult, references to a psychiatrist. I think that's all the old with the 77 features. Yeah. And then the contemporary one in 2018 also has a lot of close-ups on some really gross things, but it's a lot of bones breaking. Lots of bones breaking.
Including that old hit, Dem Bones, Dem Bones.
Oh my goodness. Yes, Dem Bones indeed. Yeah, I would say that the gratuitous Dem Bones is way more gratuitous in 2018.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like more like mangled than, I feel like that's a good word to take away from 2018. It's just mangled bodies, mangled corpses, just mangling. Also large scary hooks, very sharp hooks.
Yes.
Very sharp hooks. That do enter flesh. There is not like full nudity, but like, you know, not a lot of clothing worn by dancers. There also actually is dance in this. That's not really a trigger warning unless you really are triggered by dance, but there is a lot. There's a lot more dance in the 2018 version than the 1977 version.
It's significant.
Yes. There is more reference to like the time period and like reference to the Holocaust and Nazis, because this is taking place in Germany, and like there's a lot of history that I don't even fully understand after seeing this movie multiple times, and going on Wikipedia deep dives. But just to give context, that also might be disturbing to folks. And there's a seizure. There's an almost full beheading. Death. If you don't like death shows up.
So many times.
Yeah. Did I miss anything?
Heavy makeup.
What?
Heavy prosthetic makeup.
You talking about Tilda Swinton, aka Lutz Ebersdorf, who played Joseph Klemperer, aka that was also Tilda Swinton.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
She plays 3. If you're triggered by Tilda Swinton playing a million characters, she plays 3 characters in this movie.
Which we'll go into deep dives for sure about that and those prosthetics as well.
Yeah.
So, but
I miss any?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess like also like decaying bodies.
Lots of fleshy things. People ripping open their chests and stuff.
Fleshy.
Yeah,
fleshy business,
Totally.
which is a play on risky business.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Also
of
in the
course.
album.
Yeah, also on the album. But,
Yes.
yeah. I know that's old time rock and roll, but it's fleshy business.
But it's fleshy
Fleshy
business.
business.
We gotta write these tracks down, guys. We gotta share them on the social medias.
Oh boy.
But wow, and now I lost my thought because I'm thinking about tracks now for this album that we have. But here we go.
But do you like the ice cream flavor mousse tracks?
I don't think I've
What
ever
is
had
that?
it. What's in it?
It's vanilla ice cream
I'll
with
look it up.
fudge swirled throughout it and peanut butter cups.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Wait, did you also know that they're their own ice cream company?
Mousse tracks?
Yeah.
No,
Like
I
they
didn't
have a
know
website
that.
that's moosetracks.com. That's all about Moose Tracks ice cream.
I didn't know. I
Vanilla,
just knew
peanut
that's a
butter
specific
cups,
flavor.
and fudge. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Jamie's
And
on
then I
it. She's like,
guess-
and I'm looking it up.
I gotta know. But now there's
Yes.
like other flavor ideas. You can submit your own flavor idea.
I did not mean for this to go down this kind of a Moose Tracks rabbit hole.
Strawberry maximum fudge Moose Tracks. Fluffer Another. Weren't we just talking about Fluffer Anothers, Brian?
We were.
Now I'm
in that-
hungry.
Yeah, we were.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
Before I go grab a snack.
Yeah,
in
yeah,
this.
yeah.
Producer Brian, please give us some words before we get into this.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we are talking about Suspiria. However, if you want to hear us talk about other stuff, you can follow us on all social media at Talk Horror Pod. We're on TikTok. If TikTok exists in the near future, we will be on Instagram. So follow us on Instagram, definitely. Twitter. You can follow us on all those places and on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. We do some stuff there as well. So follow us on all of those places. We are happy to have you.
Fantastic. All right, guys. I heard that you watched a lot of stuff, but I just have to quickly mention that I finished my Twilight Saga journey.
Yes. Wait,
Finally.
remind us, which ones had you not seen some of them? Like I forget what your was
Yeah.
anything brand new to you?
The last one, part 2, breaking down part 2, because I saw 1 through 3 in theaters.
Okay.
Actually, no, I lied. I saw the first one in theaters, the second one at home, because I was trying to get ready to watch the third one in theaters. So like literally hours before I watched the third one in theaters, I watched the second one at home. And then Breaking Down Part 1, I watched at home a long time ago, these years ago, like closer to when they actually came out. But I realized I never fully watched Part 2, but I already knew it because of social media ruining everything and the whole spoilers for Twilight, the whole it all being like a vision that this could have happened, but it didn't thing.
Yeah.
So when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't know that happened, but I didn't know how we got here. So
Sure. I did not know that. So that was I was deeply sad when all my favorite I didn't care about this thing. But when all my favorite characters died, I was deeply sad. I was like, wow, they really swung for the fences.
Yeah,
and
you
then
don't want Carlisle to die. Like
no.
yeah.
Wild.
So I have ended that journey. I will forever be Team Jacob, and Bella is the biggest gas lighter on the face of the planet. She should be studied in psychology books because what the hell was all of that going back
She's
and
the
forth
villain.
for no reason?
I'm
She is
pro
the villain.
Bella's dad.
Her dad? You blame her dad?
I feel so-
No.
Oh.
No. I think that he's the one until the end where he just gave up.
for
And
sure.
gave in. He was always just like actually trying to look out for her. I just don't think he did a very good job of expressing in himself.
Yes, absolutely. But I felt bad for him too, in the sense of her
Yeah.
just being like, all right, and now I'm gone for a year. Bye. You just won't
Get
ever
the
hear
hell.
from me. And he's like,
Yeah.
what?
Woof.
Anyway. But yeah, I'm happy
You
that
stink,
I
Bella.
got through and watched it. Huh?
Yeah.
I said, you stink, Bella.
She does. That is my PSA for Twilight. Bella sucks. So
Are you going to watch
What if-
50 Shades of Grey next?
well, okay. Remember, I watched 1 and 2.
Right.
I have not watched the third one. So
You gotta finish the trilogy if you just finished Twilight, you know?
I do. And we're talking about Dakota Johnson, so I might as
Sure.
well like go back and watch the thing. Also, I will say last thing on Twilight before you guys get to y'all's, I did not realize the switch up of Victoria characters from like the second one, like the first one to the second one.
To what's her face? Why can't I remember her name?
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
No, Bryce. Yes, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Mhm.
But I really liked that at the very, very end in part 2, they gave recognition for both of the actresses when they were doing the credits.
Yeah,
and
I remember
like, Victoria for this one and then Victoria for this one. I was like, that's
Yeah.
nice, y'all.
They did the credits are like a Lord of the Rings Return of the King credits, right? Where like
Yes,
it's like
people's
Yeah,
faces.
yeah. It's like it's almost like a curtain call, like a bow.
Yes,
a
yes,
movie
yes,
bow.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I appreciated that from them because I heard
Yeah.
that was kind of just like a scheduling thing that got messed up and then they just kind of hired somebody else. Even though the first actress like was trying to configure everything to do it.
Sure.
But yeah, anyway, what have you guys watched?
So we've mostly just been watching all of the Oscar movies. We watched all the Oscar movies before the Oscars.
Yes,
Some
yes.
real bangers in there.
Oh
However,
boy.
I have been binging the Purge movies.
Really?
Yeah.
I enjoy
So,
them, yes.
I've watched the Purge Anarchy, the Purge election year, and then the first Purge. I'd never seen the first Purge. So I'd seen the first 3 before, but I'd never seen the first Purge, and I still have yet to watch the Forever Purge. I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
Damn, this franchise holds up. The rule, I mean, I want more rules. Like, I think they need one of my pet peeves is they need to explain the rules a bit better. But like, this is just a fascinating franchise that borders even almost more on sci-fi than it does horror. And like, it's more terrifying than maybe it was when they first came out in like 2013. I think that binging them and watching the first one as just a home invasion movie on the Purge night, and then opening up the lens to Anarchy, which is my favorite one so far. I saw Anarchy in theaters, but Anarchy kind of like opening up the lens of like the world on one of those nights, and then election year having like really high stakes in the world, I think are just like, I think that's an excellent trilogy, like a really spectacular trilogy. I think they're all like really good movies. I think the first Purge as a movie goes downhill because I don't really care about the characters, but I'm interested in the politics of how everything happens in that one.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to the Forever Purge, and they're making a 6th movie at some point. And if I like the Forever Purge, I'll probably watch the TV show, the 2 seasons of the TV show.
I don't even think I realized there was a TV show.
Yeah, it was on Sci-Fi maybe or something like that. But
Okay.
I'm really digging this. This is a really good quality franchise, just in
Nice.
general. So like I like, these are like 3.5 star movies, and they're like super consistent for me. So and for so far, Anarchy's the best one. I actually think that Anarchy and Election Year to me are equal. I just like Anarchy a little bit better, but I think that Election Year is awesome. So like, these movies are badass. So I'm actually really excited to watch the Forever Purge. I just forgot how good they are, like genuinely good. I also think that like, I just love rules so much that these are like gifts. These are like these rule gifts. And
Absolutely.
right? Like the movie is literally about rules.
Yes.
You don't like them, but they're there.
I mean, right, but it makes you not have to think about anything else because you're like, I know that 2 + 2 = 4, so now I can enjoy the movie as opposed to trying to figure out like what is happening.
Absolutely. I mean, so I have lots of questions. If we ever cover the Purge, I want to talk about these things. I'm just putting it out into the universe.
Yes.
One, if you commit a crime before the Purge, aka like keeping someone from going home, or like kidnapping someone before the Purge, or like, you know, messing with someone's gas tank or slashing someone's tires, and that happens before 7 p.m. on Purge night, like, and then you kill the person, wherever it is, like, can you be prosecuted for crimes that you did that led to, like, how does that cross over? One,
Right.
Two, if you're doing illegal things on Purge night, for instance, like if you're using over level 4 weapons, whatever they consider that, like explosive and stuff like that, like how are you dealt with in that way? Stuff like that. And and I just think that there's a lot of gray area between like what happens just before and can you be prosecuted for that because it happened outside of the Purge window. So that's something that I question. I also don't, and I understand why the movie does this. I get it, but the movie does not go into the implications of sexual assault during the Purge.
Yeah.
They talk, it's inferred, excuse me, like I think in the first Purge somebody actually starts to grope her, and in other ones they're kind of like, like, oh, you look tasty, like stuff like that. But they never really go into it, and I feel like that's a huge part of what would actually happen in reality, even though I understand that these are movies and like they probably just don't want to get into that. That's just from a rules perspective, and like what, like, and the stakes of the movie being higher potentially for women, and they don't really ever get into that. I think that would be an interesting thing to talk through. But overall, badass movie with like real interesting political implications of like, this new founding fathers trying to get rid of the lower class so they don't have to pay for them, and it very becomes like a classist move. It's all, they're just like so interesting to me. Anyway, I just wanted too long of a rant on the Purge movies. That was wild. I'm so sorry.
I mean, yeah, just wait until you get to Forever Purge. I think I've only seen the first one and then Forever Purge, but as far as like political things, like it's definitely within like our political climate right now.
Yeah, you should watch the second and third ones. Are amazing. You should totally watch those, Nikisha.
Now I want to, but what would be a great concept would be like, to your point, Brian, of knowing some more information, would be like the day before and people trying to plan their things, and then the day after, and like not what happened, but then you find out what happens via, are people getting persecuted, like people finding out what they did at the end.
Oh, I like a Purge movie that doesn't actually show the Purge.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a mystery, or like, what does the year look like with like prosecuting certain crimes and stuff. That's fascinating. I'm into that. I'm into that. I love that. Let's make it happen.
Got it.
Great.
Fantastic. Well, anything else you guys have watched? Jamie, you've watched anything?
Have I watched anything? I don't think so.
No, we just we watched all 10 of the.
I just spend all my free time just scrolling on TikTok till my brain oozes out of my head.
So
I mean, do it while you can, as Brian mentioned earlier.
True.
True. Very fantastic. Well, we have to get into a plot summary, and since we're doing a double feature, none of the rules are changed, guys. It's still going to be 2 minutes. Brian just has to do 2 movies in 2 minutes. So let's see how this goes with producer Brian giving us a plot summary of both 1977 and 2018 of Suspiria.
What's the plot?
Okay, here's my plan going in. I'm going to try and do 1977 Suspiria in like 10 seconds. And then the rest I'm going to spend on 2018 Suspiria.
Got it.
Let's see if I can get it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
You got this.
Jamie. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I'm setting 2 minutes on the clock for you, producer Brian, to give us your recaps, plural, of 1977 and 2018 Suspirias.
Okay.
You ready, Freddie?
No.
I know that's not your name.
Let's do it.
All right. Ready, set, go.
The 1977 Suspiria is about a woman who travels to Germany to join a prestigious ballet school. Everything seems a little bit weird. People start dying and disappearing, and she keeps getting like sick and ill, but she's the only one really investigating everything. In the end, it turns out that they're all witches sacrificing everybody, and she ends up killing the lead witch and blowing up the ballet school. It's a Giallo film, so it is very the tone is all over the place, and it's very avant-garde. It's Italian avant-garde, if you will, for horror. Okay, 2018 Suspiria is almost the same thing, except not at all. So it's about a girl played by Dakota Johnson, who goes to this German ballet school, this prestigious ballet school. She's from like an Amish type family in Ohio, who has always been drawn to this specific school. She goes, similar things happen. She starts to see, people start disappearing, weird things are happening. However, we kind of know that they're witches up front because of certain things that happen in this. She's an amazing dancer. They're basically they're making her a sacrifice in some ways because she's so amazing. She's got all these powers. They're going to sacrifice her to kind of bring. There's fighting between the witches, between the two factions, and they vote for the new witch queen essentially. And at the end, they bring Dakota Johnson's character to kind of basically like give her life force to the other witch. However, what they didn't realize is that Dakota Johnson is actually the Suspirium, like the number one like evil being and witch, and she was drawn there, and she literally fucking kills everybody, and it's awesome. At the same time, there is a psychiatrist who's trying to help her and figure everything out with her as well, and of course there's James in this movie as well.
That was fantastic, Brian. Yes.
And that's the plot.
Great job with the double feature.
Yeah.
Man, yes, Mia Goth is in this as well, which was a surprise to me when I first watched this. I did not realize that she was in it, so it was a nice surprise that she also wasn't evil in any capacity in this either, just a victim of it, unfortunately.
James.
Which, speaking of, we didn't talk about that. Maxine has an actual date, guys.
Yeah.
And that's so exciting.
Oh
July
my
5th.
God.
Ooh,
And
so exciting.
we didn't even talk about Nev Campbell back in Scream.
Yes.
Oh my God. I can't.
We'll do that. We'll do that in the next. We'll talk about some of the news on the next episode.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I think
We'll have to put a
okay.
marker down for that.
Yeah, for
great.
sure.
So let's get into our first segment of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So, because this is a double feature, we're going to be a little light on how detailed we usually are with our likes and gripes, just so that we can get through our big thoughts and, have a discussion about it. So, who would like to go first for this?
I'm happy to go first, if that's okay
Fantastic.
with you two.
Go ahead.
Do it to
Okay.
it.
So I had never seen either of these movies. In fact, I've never seen a Dario Argento movie, and I've never really seen a true Giallo movie, which I think is the same for Jamie. Is that correct?
Yes, but I do feel like, without getting into spoilers, there's been some more recent horror that definitely is Giallo influenced.
Sure. Yeah, so that was a new experience for me, which I was super happy to have for the 1977 one. Just to be clear, I watched the 2018 one before I watched the 1977 one. So I watched the Tilda one before I watched the Dario one, essentially.
I think that makes a big difference, just FYI to audiences.
I 100% agree with you. I feel like I did not get the full 1977 experience because I had watched the 2018 one, which is totally fine. I don't regret, no regrets. So
no regrets.
No regrets. I did not enjoy the 1977 one.
Okay.
And I think the 2018 one is an absolute brilliant masterpiece.
Yeah.
So I'll just start again. I'm not going into the depths of it. The 1977 one was not for me. There was no tension in it for me. It's not my type of 70s movie. And as we all know, if you listen to the podcast and YouTube, I think 70s horror is the best. I love it so much. I think there's a tone and a quality and a rawness to it that this movie does actually have that doesn't really work for me. It could not keep my attention. There was no mystery to it. The effects, all of that, it just felt like a bad haunted house, especially like the bat sequence and all of that. Like give me like Freddy's Revenge, like bird scene over that bat scene if we're talking about flying things.
Okay.
She was a Navy SEAL counting those footsteps. like that, like all of that stuff like just really didn't work for me. And then I was like, wait, that was the end? Like the invisible stabbing, like all of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't get into it. I really, really couldn't. But I understand that this was my first experience with this type of Italian film. I loved the score. I thought the score is what kept me in it. I
Mm.
love the colors, and I know it's known for its like red and all of that colors. It felt
Yeah.
like light shining through stained glass windows the whole time. I loved that ambiance and that feel, but only in moments. Like it narratively didn't pull me through, so as I couldn't enjoy the avant-garde as much. I think I
Mm.
would have loved it if I was in the 70s and seeing this for the first time, or even the 80s.
Mm.
Maybe I would have liked it a little bit more if I hadn't seen the 2018 one and already thought it was a masterpiece. But I think that the 2018 one is an absolute banger of a movie. Like this
Mm.
is like 4.5 out of 5 stars for me. Check out my letterbox at BP527. I thought that the performances are spectacular. I think that the direction is spot on. I think that this is how you do a remake. You take the structure of the original one and you layer the fuck out of it. I
Mm.
just thought that the allegory of World War II and that a city never forgets. And there's just like all of this, like the last shot of that movie, I'm getting goosebumps right now. I will never forget the idea that like the two Holocaust lovers, like the lovers who were lost in the Holocaust and all of that, like their they know their names chiseled into the house, but like the vines are growing over it, but like it never leaves. Your scars are always there. This
Mm.
idea of guilt and shame and national guilt, misplaced guilt, the idea that you never forget. I just think all of that is just absolutely spectacular with everything layered on top of it. I think that it's just like this pulling of forces and power dynamic in this is spectacular. I immediately got over the fact that Tilda Swinton was wearing heavy makeup. I just think she's amazing in all of the parts in this. I thought the dance sequences, specifically Dakota Johnson's first one when she's like doing her audition, where it's that like very impactful movement and then they cut away. And you only get bits and pieces of her, but everything is just so, there's such a choice there that it was just like really drew me in. I thought all of the special effects and the bone cracking and all that was like really great. I thought that Mia Goth and all the supporting roles, including Hit Girl, Chloe Moretz, were just
Hit
absolutely
girl.
fantastic. I thought I loved that the twist wasn't the witches. The
Mm.
twist, and I think
I agree.
that because it's just so guessable. And guessable in a way. Let's pretend that like 77 doesn't exist, and I didn't see it. I didn't know it was witches. I had an idea it was witches or a cult or something. But like you
Yeah.
can just kind of tell up front with the vibes, but that's not the twist. And I like
Mm.
the idea that this person who comes in, this American who comes into Germany, like exterminates all of this. And like I thought that was really interesting. I love that it was calling her out. I just think, and the performances are so specific and paced well, and they're not all over the place. They're just like this precision performances from everybody, and I just thought that this movie was great. And we talked about Dakota Johnson. This is the Dakota Johnson I want to see more of, not the 50 Shades, not the Madam Web, like this Dakota Johnson version. I think that the 2018 movie is an absolute amazing film. And those are my, and I have some gripes. Obviously, I think it's very dense the first time. Not this is a gripe, but I definitely need to think about it. I got lost a lot in the second one because so much is happening. But I was able to like take it all in, and it was like a really, it felt like a book, like a dense book or a beautiful painting where like there's so much happening. I really dug Suspiria 2018. That's how you do a remake. That has easily entered into my like top 5 horror remakes ever.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. Some thoughts that I also agree with you, Brian, of just the density of it. I'll save it, but I just wanted to say that I also agree with that statement, as far
Oh.
as it's just a lot of layers of things.
Yeah, I'm done. If one of the two of you want to go, I just wanted to. Yeah, I loved
Yeah.
it. I love the second one. I I will say the 1977 one makes me want to watch, actually get acquainted with Dario's like portfolio filmography. I want
Yeah.
to watch the, like, the other ones, like Demons and all of the movies that, like, I just haven't seen of his, to get more comfortable and familiar with Giallo in general and his work. So it didn't
Mhm.
deter me. It made me more interested because I didn't love it.
Mm,
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, do you want to go next?
sure. So I saw the 2018 Suspiria before the 1977 Suspiria. I saw the 2018 in theaters when it came out. Um, and I was very confused, and I didn't really like this movie. But I've had a significant amount of time since 2018 to like sit on it, and it has truly grown on me. And then finally, I was thinking about it so much, and I haven't even given it a rewatch. And then with all the Madam Web stuff in the media, I was like, you know what, Dakota Johnson is so charming. I really want to rewatch Suspiria.
Yeah.
And so that was why we watched it again, or why I watched it again, why Brian watched it for the first time. And it, like, having sat on it for so long and then revisiting it, it was a really excellent rewatch for me. I really enjoyed it the second time around. I I think that I had expectations going into it. I think I was just like, I just didn't know, I had no context for going into it the first time. And even like I had mentioned in like the trigger warnings, maybe not the best place for it, but like the historical context of what's happening in this movie still is really confusing to me. And I think that's part of why I was very confused my first watch. So like even now, going through all of the wiki deep dives and stuff, I still don't fully understand it. However, I do feel like I have a better understanding than I did the first time. So that being said, I think Brian highlighted a lot of the things that I also really enjoy about this remake. I think I like that, like, now having the context of 77, I do like that it takes kind of a different turn in, the similarities of like this American dancer ends up in Germany at this dance academy. And secretly it's controlled by a coven, and then it's like all bets are off beyond that. Is really interesting because it's like that's such an interesting concept, and then to kind of like take whatever direction you want to go is fascinating, and it's just very interesting to like see them side by side and see, you know, two totally different views on what the story is there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Were you gonna say something?
Oh, I also, something, seeing them side to side. The 2018 one doesn't spoon feed you anything. It doesn't treat the audience like an
No.
idiot. It
No.
allows you
That's
to
why
make.
I think I felt like an idiot the first time, because I was I had to work really hard in that movie
Yeah.
to figure out what was going on, and like
Yeah.
understanding all of the themes. And it's just like, it's also like a pretty hefty movie, 2018.
Yes.
There's a lot to digest and make sense of and like learn about. There's a lot of different characters. Like the first time I saw this, I definitely was confused about the fact that like some of the scenes where all the witches are together, like the dance, the teachers, if you will, were
Yeah.
together. I didn't realize that they were speaking telekinetically with one another. That just like totally went over my head. There's just so many things that I was like, I don't know what's happening. So
Yeah.
I'm very glad that wasn't my only experience with this movie, to be able to appreciate it so much more. And also like, I'm somebody that really likes to hear other people and read other like reviews and reflections on movies after I watch them, because it just helps me get a better understanding of like what I just experienced. And so like I'd listen to like a few podcasts that had covered Suspiria, and like things like that that allowed me to like rethink of what my perspective was, and going into it with like just like more than I think that I had versus the first time.
Yeah.
I I really I yeah, Dakota Johnson is like truly excellent in this film. I think that her career is so interesting.
Yes.
But like this one, this was a good career move. Like this
Mhm.
was a
Yeah.
good casting decision. I think that she just like really embodies both this like this longing to be somewhere but also not fully understanding it, and like not fully understanding herself, and that there's like something going on internally, her relationship with her mother, and then like her relation, like a similar type of parallel relationship when she comes here.
Mhm.
She just like really captures all of that, and then like the reveal at the end is wild, but like I believe it. Like I believe that
Yeah.
now she
Yeah.
has like fully assumed, like the identities have now like aligned, and like she is Mother Suspirium and is like just pow 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 killing everyone.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And like, and then the end is so moving and sad and like so intense and like makes you cry. Like it's like really, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
not always expecting to cry watching all these horror movies, but like here I go, again, it must be the emotional cancer in me that's like sobbing at
Yes.
the end of Suspiria, with this poor psychiatrist who like learns about the fate of his lost love. Like it's so
Mhm.
deeply devastating. Yeah, I just think this is like a wildly impactful film that for me at least requires multiple viewings. I hope that other people, I think that this is a really good rewatchable film. I hope other people like watch it again and again, because it just like there's just so much to consume with this, and I think
Mhm.
that it's a worthwhile rewatch. It's not like boring or too long. Plus like the scenes, I have a little bit of a problem with like some of the CGI stuff that happens, but like at the same time, the brutality of what's happening in those moments, so like the really disturbing like dance scene where
Mhm.
Olga is like locked in that mirror room and is just like, it's also I, I we've talked about dance in other movies before. I am not a dancer. I couldn't tell you the first thing about dance, but like the movements that Olga is doing in that room, where it is dance, but it's also like disturbing and like aggressive, and like she's
Mhm.
throwing her body around, but like she is also kind of dancing, but then like like destroying her organs, and like you can see her whole body is just like mutilating on the inside.
Mhm.
It's a really fucked up scene. Like it's like really disturbing to watch. And like there's parts that take me in and out when it's like, okay, that looks really CGI, but then other parts where you're just like seeing her like face slowly become more and more like messed up, and like it's like it's so graphic. I fucking hate that scene. I hated watching it the first time, and I was dreading it the second time, because I
Mhm.
just find it so like I don't even know what it doesn't have my typical big mouth creeped outness, but like I find
Mhm.
this scene so disturbing. Not even the part when they come with the hooks, but just like everything that her body is doing. She like
Yeah.
contorts, and like it's very impressive and very fucked up.
Yeah.
But like that scene is truly impactful for me. Um and then also when Mia Goth breaks her leg,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know Brian's not pro leg injuries.
no,
I
no, no.
remembered that one. I forgot about the random hole that appears in the floor, but I
Mhm.
did remember the leg break, and then like putting it back together kind of, and like sending her back up to finish the dance, and it's like, oh god, like she's gonna drop, like she's gonna lose it.
Right.
Yeah, like all of those scenes are just like ugh, so wild. I feel like those are I think those are worse than what happens at the end of the movie, because at the end, at
Mm,
that point, it's just this like really over exaggerated
Hmm.
bloodbath.
yes.
And it's like, wee, fun, we're all dancing in the blood
Yeah.
that's like spraying from all the people we're exploding.
But there's also a
Um
Mhm.
nice bit of empathy there because she's not just killing some people, she's putting
yes.
others out of their misery, which is like
Yes.
is a
Yeah.
real different like feeling in those versus that dance with the breaking legs and stuff like that. I totally agree with you, Jamie.
Yeah.
Mm,
And I think that's like, it goes back to what she talks about at the end about like suffering, and like for like
mhm.
who has to suffer, and like these girls have already suffered enough, and so like asking them what they desire, and they desire death, and just allowing them a painless death at that point because they've already been through everything.
Yeah.
It's really intense and fascinating. I will also say that that scene where uh I always get all of them confused because there's so many names, where
Mhm.
Marcos almost fully beheads Blanc.
Yeah.
Uh
Mhm.
that scene's wild. It happens like so fast, and then she's
Yeah.
just like,
Yes.
ugh.
And just standing there, like kneeling, and
Literally.
just so
Yeah.
much CGI blood just
Yeah.
everywhere.
And then it
Yeah.
is really
Yes.
funny when one of the other ones comes over later to try to like flop her head back.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was really funny. But yeah, I agree with Brian. I really enjoy 2018. So so 1977 is not my favorite. I just think that it's not for me, and I'm not going to come on here and be a sourpuss like I feel like I always am. So but I think that like I think that the thing that doesn't work for me is like a movie that doesn't necessarily answer my questions. So I just had a
Mm,
lot of questions about like why things were happening, and then by the end I was like, okay, but like that's not the point, and I'm never going to get the answers, and that's not why this is happening. But
mm.
I just have a harder time getting through a film that like doesn't try to like that's why I know that this is not necessarily for me.
Hmm.
That being said, I did really like the soundtrack. One of the things I wrote down, I guess trying to remember the soundtrack, is just, this is in my notes. I wrote "Wah." So I don't
Nice.
remember what I was trying to
Ah.
to say. The blood is so red.
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
bright clown nose red.
Mhm.
Which I think is really funny. And I'm like, wow, I wonder when did the transition to like have like darker red appear for blood happen? Because
Yeah.
I forgot how like in earlier movies, like blood is just like like
It's like
cherry
ketchup.
red.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like redder than ketchup. It's
Yeah.
wild. But yeah, I also, something that I didn't realize was like like a popular, I think like Italian movie mechanic, was I did not realize that this whole movie was ADR'd
Yes.
until
I
I
put
was
that
like
in my
Oh,
halfway
notes
right.
through the
too.
movie, and then I was like, is it ADR? This is so I found it very distracting, and I just didn't
Yes.
realize that that is a thing. So again, I'm trying to be very mindful about what I say, because like I don't think this is a bad movie. I just don't think it's a movie that is for me.
Yeah.
But like for me, it was very distracting because I was like, so like, is one of them speaking English, and are other actors speaking in Italian? And then did they also dub that over? Because
They
I
did.
also had no idea whether or not this movie was going to be in English. And
Mm.
then and was very surprised when I hit play, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I just didn't know anything about it. But yeah, the ADR definitely took me out.
I was also really distracted in the 1977 Suspiria of how that psychiatrist or whatever said occult instead of occult. He was like the
Occult.
occult, and I just like I was so distracted by that, especially
The
because of the
occult.
ADR and his mouth is doing
Oof.
something that my ears aren't hearing correctly, and
Yep.
I laughed every single time he said that because he said it's so serious, like teaching somebody about the occult And I was just like,
Yes.
"Are you about to sneeze? Like, what are we doing here?"
Cult.
Yeah,
Cult.
and
Yes.
yeah, that got me for sure.
One other thing I really liked is when uh when Susie's in the office towards the end of the movie before she like makes the connection about the blue iris. I like the way that the camera pans around the office. It's very like I don't even know how to describe what's happening, but it looks like you're looking through like a not like a kaleidoscope. That's not right at all, but like it's almost as if she is stationary and the room behind her is swiveling and it like is disappearing on the sides. I was like, oh, they like fully changed up the camera mechanics like for this one random scene. Like that's so wild. But it was really interesting and like that really captured my attention in that moment. But yeah, I just had a lot of questions like why is that one dancer trying to sell her the shoes?
Right.
Why
Oh yeah,
why is there a room filled with barbed wire?
Mm-hmm.
that she
How can
saw
she
before she
count
jumped in.
so far?
Yes.
Like count steps that go so far.
Right.
Why did they let her into the school if they fucking hate her?
Mm-hmm. So many
um
questions.
why did she wipe the wine in the sink the way that she did? I was
After
like,
she
who
flushed the food down
when
the
you
toilet, yeah.
yeah, I was like, why do you flush the wine down? It's a liquid. What are you
It's a
doing?
liquid. Right. But
Anyway,
Brian, to your point too, I put in my notes about that barbed wire. I'm like, you're really not gonna look where you're about to jump. You're just gonna jump, and now
I
you're in
just
barbed. Okay,
couldn't.
cool, cool.
At that point in the movie, I was just like, I felt bad. I felt bad
Mm-hmm.
watching the first one because I'm like, this is something that I feel like I should be enjoying. It's this like weird avant-garde Italian film that like is
Yes.
well known, and it just didn't grab me. And I wonder it's because of how much I love 2018 and how much more interesting and grounded and layered it was that I just like couldn't get into this like very, you know, tonally wild Italian film from the 70s, like honestly.
Absolutely.
yeah. I also couldn't figure out like why were they deciding who they wanted to kill? And I only say that because like why did they end up killing they we never see it, but I don't know why they killed the pianist. And they
Right.
accuse his dog of like attacking the boy, but like
Yeah,
I don't even know if that actually happened. So like why
that's weird.
him? I
Mhm.
understand why they were killing like the dancers who were like, finding out about the coven and their schemes, but like
Right.
Right.
I was like, why are you killing like this employee who's who's like helping your cover? It just didn't because that it just felt purposeless and I was like, is the whole point of them just like inviting students and then like killing them over time? Is that how they like succeed? Like I just had a lot of questions, but
Fair.
Yeah.
it's
All fair.
okay that they'll never be answered. And yeah, it was a wild ride.
Yes. It's definitely a very wild ride. A lot of the things that you guys have said, I agree with. I will say though, overall, I thought that both movies for me were just okay. The 2018 one is wildly better than the 1977 one, but I watched the 1977 one first a few
Mm.
years ago, just because it's like you guys said, it's supposed to be one of these great films in the horror movie genre, and so I just randomly watched it one night and thought, okay, this is really interesting, but it's 1977, so I'm just gonna let them get away with a lot of stuff because of the
Sure.
time period. And but the one thing I did enjoy, I enjoyed all the colors of it all. It just felt like very of the time, like psychedelic 70s vibe. And so
Mm-hmm.
it was just kind of like, okay, this is what this is. It's about dance and about witches. So, all right, cool. Someone decided to make this movie and here we are. But I will say that I definitely wrote ADR in my notes, Jamie, because at the very end in the credits too, it says like dubbed by such and such, whatever. So
Mhm.
at first I was thinking like, did they just rewrite the script and was just trying to like put things over, but didn't want to reshoot things? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it definitely is just like, I guess someone speaking in another language in Italian and then them just dubbing it all in English. So that was very, very, very distracting. Also, the worst witch award goes to the head witch
Right?
in this first one, because, and that was my biggest gripe, because you claim that you knew that Susie was coming, and this witch didn't prepare for her at all and just let her just up and kill her randomly. Like, you're not a good witch. Like, you just kind of
Yeah.
suck at your job. You're supposed to be
Yeah.
the mother of all these witches. So, like, you're letting this American come in and just, like, kill you and burn the things. Like,
Yeah, do
anyway,
better.
that
Yeah,
Do
there was
better.
nothing special about Susie, and you don't have to be like the one, you know what I mean? But there was
Mhm.
just
Yes.
nothing that she did to like earn her place as a witch killer, and she
Yeah.
walked out of like super confident at the end, and like not knowing what's happening at the same time. But like, I just like there was nothing special about her as a main character that made me think that she would do it, and like that's not interesting.
Mhm.
It's not. And on top of that, like, everything was so over dramatic, melodramatic. When she faints for the first time in the dance studio, it was just like, what is happening here?
Sure.
Mhm.
But anyway, all that to say, I watched these today. Like, again, I rewatched the 1977 one first, and then went and watched the 2018 one. And I told you guys I had started watching it, but I was only 30 minutes in. And
Yeah,
so I finished the entire thing today. I also didn't realize it was 2.5 hours. And a gripe of mine is that I did feel like it was long. And maybe because it
Mhm.
was so layered, I was just like, there's a lot happening here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Even though you already know that there are 6 parts to it, because it says it, 6 parts in
Right.
epilogue. But I was just kind of like, we're not even at 5 yet. And then 6 happens, and then you're like, there's still more. Because I
Mhm.
also would have probably preferred if it ended with just like the witches dancing in the blood. Like, for that would have been satisfying enough to me.
Mhm.
But I also think it's probably because I was just Suspiria out at that point, because
Oh, sure,
watching
sure. You
them
spent all
back to
day.
back, like,
Oh yeah,
literally
totally.
back to back.
Mm.
So that probably felt like the 5th hour of it, because like you're watching
Yes.
the hour and a half movie or 2 hour movie, then you watch the 2.5 hour. Yeah, I totally get that.
Yes. Yeah. So I was just kind of like,
That's a
okay,
lot.
it's a lot. But there were a lot of things that I did enjoy. Jamie mentioned the dance scene with Olga. That was one of my favorite parts in this. But I enjoyed Dakota's performance, and we kind of know Dakota in certain like avenues, but I, in a good way, forgot that it was her in this movie. I was just invested in what Susie was trying to accomplish, and I thought that I fucked myself up when I randomly saw that Tilda Swinton was playing multiple characters. So for some reason, when I started it back, I thought that maybe the psychologist was like also a part of the coven in some way, because Tilda was
Gotcha.
playing like both of them. But
Mhm.
luckily that's like not the movie, so they're like, she's completely different people that are
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
pulling off a Scooby-Doo mask, and it's me, I'm the witch the whole time. That's what I
Sure.
kind of thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
So I appreciated that. And yeah, I had to look up some things to kind of get an explanation of what was happening. My biggest question is that are we to assume that Susie was always the head witch, or did she actually like get powers and become the head witch while she was in school?
Mm.
Like, I don't know. What do you guys have an opinion about that?
I think that she was always the witch.
Great.
Because I think when they show scenes of her as a kid and they're like studying, and she like keeps going back to like the Berlin, Germany page and is like circling it.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
but she doesn't know why she's drawn. Like, I think that she is the witch, but does not
okay.
have the awareness that she is the witch. And it's not
Mhm,
until she like goes through this whole experience and is like having all these nightmares that like Blanc is putting in her
Mhm.
and doing all that stuff, that like I think she's already the vessel, if you will, for Mother Suspirium. And like,
yeah.
it's through that experience does she like realize it, and in the moment that she realizes it, like, she is Mother Suspirium.
Got it.
Same
Brian, you
thing.
agree?
I totally agree, and I
Yeah.
would add on top of that it was her religious mother's, also her religious mother like shunning her and not liking that one kid and knowing she was different, that also allows us to know that that something has always been a little evil about her, whether it's being
Mhm.
for use or good or not. And I think at the end, when somebody is trying to take her identity or like see that she's her or saying that she's
Mm-hmm.
her and stuff like that when it's not true, like that's when she opens up her chest and all of that stuff to like let it all out. Like I agree with Jamie completely.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I love that that was the plot twist of it all, and that it wasn't the same ending as the 77 version, which makes me like this one a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get kind of a twist and a good resolve in this one. Like everything seems to make more sense in the 18 version. But what did not make sense to me, why did you not take your leotard off to go pee? Why are you moving your leotard to the side to go pee? That was just some random scene that happened with Dakota Johnson. I was like, what is this? What is happening?
Tell us what you would do, Nikisha. Tell us the real truth.
You have, okay, listen, it's a one piece. Women, we all like to wear our one pieces, okay? You have to take it off. There's like so many social media memes about like girls in the bathroom, and it's just like you just have to take the whole thing off to go pee. Like that's just
It's
how
like
it
the
works.
romper situation where it's
the
like
romper
you
situation.
fully
yes.
have to take the romper off.
Exactly.
And then you were just like sitting on the toilet
in a public
like
bathroom.
mostly naked, like, okay. Everyone knows this experience. This is universal. Everyone's
This is universal.
Although now,
Because-
but they do. So I'm curious if dance clothes now, for all the dancers out there, you can answer this question. Do they have snap crotches? Because a lot of the like tops that they sell now that are like the
Yes.
bodysuits, they do
Mhm.
have the snap crotch. So it is easier
They
for you
do.
to pee, and you don't have to fully disrobe in a public
But I will
restroom.
say, and this is like way into female talk, Brian, but I won't get so specific.
No,
Because
this
Brian's
is
just like, I'm here.
fascinating.
I have a leotard that has like snaps, like a casual wear out leotard. But I feel
Mhm.
like in dancer world that would be like too complicated to try to dance, and you have buttons there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like snaps
Yeah.
there.
That's
So
probably
I've
why that makes
yes.
sense.
Right. So I don't think I don't know this, but I would think if there
Mhm.
wasn't leotards that had it, that would be the reason why. It's because
Yeah.
of that.
That makes
But
sense.
enough
That makes sense.
leotard female talk. That was just like an annoying thing that happened when I saw that.
Yeah.
I really like this, and I wanted my last point. Last thing that I wanted to mention was something that Jamie said about the scene where Dakota's character is giving death to the people, the girls who ask for it. And that just reminded me of the scene in House of Usher when the last like Usher girl
Oh,
was
yeah,
supposed to
yeah.
die, and the wow, why can't I think of people's names?
Carla
But the one who
Gugino?
was killing everyone, huh?
Carla
Carla.
Gugino.
Yes. And she was just like telling her about like what her mom does, and like it just that scene, and then like letting her die a peaceful death. It was just kind of like, oh yeah. So that was kind of like a nice kind of recall to both of those moments. But yeah, overall, this is not really my particular brand of horror. But in both movies, I did enjoy the prosthetics, even the 77 one for the time period, and the blood and stuff. And it was an interesting thing to watch, and I'm happy that I did watch it. Maybe some years down the line, I'll watch the 18 one again and maybe have a similar experience as you, Jamie. But I more so now associate with, Jamie, your first reaction to the 18, which is
No,
kind
that's
of like,
interesting.
what is this? What is happening? I see
Mhm.
some good things in here, but this might not just be my cup of tea, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
So-
it's interesting because like that very much was my cup of tea in terms of like I would choose that over any slasher any day of the week.
And y'all know I love dumb slashers. So
no, exactly. Like it
right.
just like, but that's why I like horror, and that's why I like talking to you two about horror, because I feel like we very much fit into like, we like different genres, and certain genres of horror affect all three of us very, very differently. And I think that's
Absolutely.
awesome, but we can all still say that we're horror fans, even though we can appreciate everything and respect everything. But like, we have our genres that we like. And
Absolutely.
and I'm really happy
And
that
we're
we
still
watched this.
friends.
And we're
Yes.
still friends.
That's the beauty of horror movies, bringing folks
Yeah.
together.
But
Yes.
yeah, I love that we all had differing opinions on this one. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But overall, I fully agree about Dakota Johnson's performance in this. I thought that everybody's performance in this, like, I was very much lost in the world that it was.
Yeah.
And that is because of how everyone was acting in this. So
Yeah, everything was so controlled. Yeah.
especially with contrasting of how, like I said, overdramatic and melodramatic the first one.
Yeah,
is.
like the Giallo overdramatic, melodramatic aspects of that one, like, work for the type of movie that it is. And I'm glad that the other one felt more controlled. It was like this, like, very, like, the first one feels Italian. This one, while still Italian, feels more German.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah, I agree.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. I'm excited now. I do kind of want to go down the Italian horror rabbit hole and find some more things. So fantastic. Well, anyone else have any last comments in our likes and gripes before we move on?
No, well, Brian and I keep talking about this director of the 2018 Suspiria and how we want to now go down a rabbit hole of like the movies that he's made, because we both realize we haven't seen a lot of them.
Can you list off some? Do you have it pulled up?
Yes.
Call Me by Your Name. Bones.
Y'all haven't seen that?
No. Call Me by Your Name.
Yes.
Bones and All. And he has the new one coming out, Challenger with Zendaya.
Oh, that's
movie.
him.
The tennis movie.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Like a really interesting filmography. Yeah. So I definitely want to like dive in more. I'm very excited for Challengers, but I'll watch any movie that she's in.
Also that.
I can't wait to see Dune 2.
Oh my gosh. I have
Dune
not
2 yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen the first one, even though I heard that she's only in like the last couple of minutes in that one, but then she's fully in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, let's move on to our next section. Brains. Tasty.
Tasty. That's on the album too.
That is also on the album.
Tasty.
Picture of that
Everybody
dog.
wants to be a cat.
What? I did not know that was where you were going with that.
I didn't either.
That's Aristocats. Like,
it is.
Everybody.
Yeah, but that wasn't what Tasty was.
Tasty. Everybody.
That was from
wants to
Fergalicious.
be a
You got to get
cat.
your songs right.
No, I'm pretty sure it's from Aristocats.
We'll put them both on there, both versions, to make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamie, I don't have much for you.
You're like, Jamie, I have no questions today.
I have no questions about this. Actually, we're gonna skip this section. No. But what I want to talk about is some things with the mental health professionals in this. First off, which is what I'm just now thinking of, would you put these mental health professionals in the good psychology category or the bad psychologist category?
Interesting.
Great question. Well, are you including the 77 psychiatrist that we talked to for like 5 seconds?
Yes. Because it gives a lot of information.
Yeah. I'm also like, okay, first and foremost, these psychiatrists shouldn't be sharing any information with randos.
And they are doing that a lot.
That is literally confidentiality, which is one of the 3 things that I start with every new client, no matter what job I've ever had, is all of our conversations are confidential. Nothing that we talk about, even the fact that we are working together, will ever be disclosed to anyone. If anyone were to ever reach out and ask me about you, I would deny knowing you.
Yes.
So I'm
Because that's
just
the first thing
like,
that the first one does. He's like,
excuse
"Oh,
me,
she
have
was
you
my
worked with my
patient."
friend Sarah? Yes, she was my patient. My patient. We worked together forever. I'm like, shut up. You should. That's not okay.
It's not.
So
Sorry, keep going.
that's not cute. I in terms of I don't really have a lot of opinions on him, but 2018, I just think he's doing too darn much. He's just
Okay.
getting way too involved
Yeah.
in his client's life. His client that like ghosts him, essentially, not realizing that she, is slowly dying. But like, what are you doing? Like showing up at this place all the time? Like, I think that him going to the police is the most appropriate thing. I think then the fact that he's like, oh, I'm gonna go watch like the dance recital is weird.
Yes.
That's too much. As somebody who also like really respects boundaries, that's too much. If I signed up for a class somewhere and I then found out that like a client signed up, like I'm done. I can't go to that class ever. I'm not gonna go to my
That's
client's
true.
like dance studio and watch their recital. That's so weird.
No. It's
That
not
is
like you're their
weird.
teacher or something, like
No.
no. Mm-mm.
And I understand that like maybe that's a very hard line when it comes to boundaries, but like I do take my professional ethics very seriously, and it's a complicated relationship between a therapist and a client, but ultimately we're not friends. And so like there is a power dynamic inherently. So it's really hard, even if you like your client, even if you're like, man, if they weren't a client, I would totally be friends with this person. I have that
Yeah.
thought all the time. But like, also, we've established this relationship dynamic now. So like, we can never be friends, much to my sadness. But like, that's just the way that it is. So I just think it unusual that that he would be so invested in like becoming a sleuth now. I'm like, what about your other clients? Don't you have other appointments throughout the day?
Yes.
Like, what the hell are you doing?
Yes.
These are
I will say
excellent
that
questions.
I really like when therapists have in-home offices.
Yeah.
I just think it's cool. It definitely depends on your client population and who you're allowing into your home. But in like a perfect world where I wasn't worried about my safety and I lived in like a really fancy house that had like a separate entrance for my clients and a bathroom.
Oh yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I would do
I'm
that.
obsessed with that.
So that's my opinion on the psychiatrist. I think he has a nice at-home office, but he's doing far too much, not appropriate.
Yeah, they're both going against protocols at the end of the day. Like, simply so, doing too much, that's not a part of the schooling for being a psychiatrist.
Yeah, they explicitly say don't do too much.
No.
Just we can't even acknowledge our clients first in public. They have to acknowledge us before we can acknowledge them. Like if I see a client at a coffee shop and I see them, but they don't see me, I'm not going to go up to them and be like, hey, if they make eyes at me, if someone makes eyes at me and I was looking at them, like I'll make eyes back. If somebody says hi to me first, I will say hi back. I'm not like rude, I'm not like a robot person. But like, I'm not engaging with you unless you engage with me first. That was like that's also the limit to what they taught us in school. And there's so many other wild boundary things that can happen in reality. That's like, that's all they teach you. That's it.
Yeah.
What about like other real life situations where like, that's not enough? So you hear that, therapy schools, you have to help support future therapists in navigating weird situations where they might run into clients. And like, there is a possibility for a dual relationship. What if you work with a client and then you found out you have like a mutual best friend that you like never realized?
Exactly.
And then that best friend invites you to their birthday party and you're all invited.
And they're there, which is, side note, what I also think about now being back in Jersey is running into my therapist because her place is in New York. So these are all good things, Jamie.
Yeah. But I also think it's like, therapists are people. So
for sure.
hopefully it's not too weird. I think there's a weird element for sure, but also like, I don't know. I'm living my life. I have a podcast. Most, if not,
Yes.
hopefully none of my clients know that I have a podcast. And if they did, I don't know what I would say. I don't know what I would say if any of my clients ever said like, "Hey, are you on Talking Horror? Are you Jamie from Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha? I didn't know you had a podcast. What's it about? Oh, it's about horror. You like horror?" I'm like, "Oh wow. Let's debrief that. How does that make you feel?"
Right.
Gotta switch into therapy mode real quick.
Exactly. Especially if they're like, "Oh, you talk about your clients a lot."
Not specifically, because confidentiality.
No, exactly. But my initial question with that, but I just had to ask how you felt about them, because we always have to ask if there's mental health professionals, like your opinions and if they did it right or not, and the representation of it all. But they talk a lot about, and let me get my words straight, the belief that magic is a form of delusion is kind of like the overall thing that is said a lot in this. So my question to you is, when you're working with a client that might present issues in regards to more like ethereal things, how do you try to assist them without making them feel like something is wrong with them? Or yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. Very much like, one of the philosophies that I have is like, the client is the expert on their experience. So like, who am I to come in and be like, yeah, that perspective is wrong. You're wrong. Like that's not speaking of like ethics and things that I'm bound by, is also cultural competency, which I also feel like that's like the barest of bare minimums and like not good enough. But that being said, that is the expectation. And so like, if I am passing judgment on what someone's coming in with, like, how does that help them? I think that there are ways to like talk through and evaluate someone's perspective on something without it coming across as judgmental, and evaluating like, is this based in reality? And you can explore that without being like, your reality is wrong. So I think, it was interesting, like the notes that the psychiatrist is taking in the beginning of the movie. I thought about that too, because like, he's taking these therapy notes, and like, perceiving Chloe Grace Moretz's character, and she's also presenting as like very, I would say like very manic in that situation. Like, she's like really really high, like high as in like high, like elated, like very over the top elated mood, but like it's also kind of going back and forth, like it's not consistent. She's like very easily distracted by his office and like the things in it. So like, on one hand, it's like interesting from like a DSM perspective of like, what is he perceiving of her in that moment. Actually, like, something, I don't know if we've ever really talked about it, but like something that like a lot of therapists or mental health professionals will do in sessions is like a mental status exam. And basically what that is you're making observations about like certain things that a client might be presenting with, that's like trying to gather more like objective information. So some of the things that you're evaluating are their mood, their like affect, like how are they actually like presenting with their mood. So like, are they is their mood congruent with like how they physically are presenting their emotions? Or is there like a disconnect between the two? Because that's something interesting. Their perception, are they like aware of what's going on in reality, or are they presenting with hallucinations and delusions? Their like cognition and memory, like, do they know physically where they are located? Do they know like what time period it is? Stuff like that. so like there's a bunch of different things that you can evaluate when you're meeting with somebody that like helps. I forget what some of the other ones are. Oh, like your motor behavior, your speech. If you're talking really fast and it seems like you're not taking a breath and like you can't get all the words out, that's like pressured speech. That was my example. So it's
Great
like this
example.
like really, thank you.
Yes.
So it's like noticing like how is this person talking right now? Are they like, speaking naturally, or like maybe their speech is really slurred? The content of what they're thinking, how they are thinking about things, how they are the speaking thing. Are they like jumping from like topic to topic, but like not with any kind of like it doesn't make sense. So there's so many different things that you can observe when you're meeting with somebody, that helps give you insight into like what's going on. So I know we haven't really talked about like the mental status exams before, but
Yeah.
it's like just helpful additional data that you're collecting when you're meeting with someone that also helps like inform what is going on with somebody potentially.
Yeah. No, that's great. And we haven't talked about that. And I have to remember that phrase, mental status.
Exam. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Great. So then with that leads me to my next question of the first character's Patricia, I think is her character name. What do you think is her kind of like mental status at that point? Like what would you say that is going on with her as far as like closely related to a diagnosis as possible, if you can, just from what you observe?
Yeah. I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, maybe that presents more as like bipolar, just because like it just seems like she's like really manic in that situation more than I would say presenting with like psychosis. But like with bipolar disorder, you could also experience some like hallucinations and certainly delusions.
Yes.
Especially because like part of a manic episode includes like feeling like you don't need to sleep for several days in a row. So like you have sleep deprivation on top of that, but like you feel like so alive. You're like, I feel so good right now. I don't even need to sleep. Like I'm above
That's so
sleep. I am
interesting.
I am like ready and raring to go. I could do anything right now. So yeah, but then obviously like not sleeping has negative consequences also.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but like I feel like it's just like she's very euphoric, but then also like very paranoid, and is just like talking really rapidly and kind of jumping all over the place. I feel like a lot of how she's presenting is mostly manic over like, being diagnosed with like schizophrenia.
Okay. Yeah, and to your point about speaking fast too, and she's speaking in different languages, like just going back and
Yeah.
forth, and
Yeah.
that is so interesting. But I do want to say I love what you said at the beginning of that question about like the client's experience and like and what their reality is their reality, and like who are you, even as a mental health professional, to say that like their experience is not their experience. And so if you ever have a therapist that does that to you guys, like Jamie said, no. That's not right. That's not
I
the
think
experience.
like there needs to be like more evaluation, because like
Mhm.
ultimately we talked about confidentiality. The only limits to confidentiality are like if you actively want to harm yourself or harm someone else. So if
Right.
your thought processes that might not be based in reality are also connected to self-harm or wanting to harm someone else, like that then would potentially lead to like that would be more of a crisis and lead to like potentially a hospitalization.
Yeah.
And so like that would be something that I think someone would evaluate, is like, are like the things that you're thinking, are they connected to potentially like that type of risk to yourself or somebody else? But I think that for me, it's also like it's really complicated, because like I I don't currently work with a lot of folks who struggle with like hallucinations or delusions, but I have
Yeah.
in the past. And
Mhm.
like it isn't really my place again like to tell anybody like the way that you're thinking about this is wrong. I also think that like having cultural humility helps you understand that like there might be more to what this belief system is than like I understand because of my own belief system. And so like again, who am I to like decide that their belief system is wrong? um
Yeah.
but I think that there's also ways where you can do like you can evaluate risk and you can do safety planning if you're concerned that potentially their belief system could lead to like harm. And so like
Right.
I think that's like where there's space to protect people. I just don't
Mhm.
think that I think it depends on what someone's goals are. If they're like, these thoughts are scary to me, versus
Mhm.
like these thoughts are normal to me. Um,
Yes.
like that's a huge difference too, because
Mhm.
I think that like someone having these thoughts and saying like I'm terrified by these thoughts is a very different approach to like this is just how I think about things and like this is totally normal for me and like I don't have a problem with this. So like even just that in and of itself I think um is a very serious consideration in like how you're approaching someone. So like for Chloe Grace Moretz, like I think that she's terrified of these thoughts because she's acting very paranoid and is like afraid of the academy and like the witches and things like that. So like I
Mhm.
think that she I think that she is afraid of what's happening and isn't just
Right.
like, this is great.
I'm all for it. Let's go.
Woohoo.
Great. Yeah, and we did talk about in the last Scream in the therapy session that happened, and thinking about things or dreaming about like killings and stuff as opposed to like actually doing things. And I think the therapist in that moment was like, "Oh, you're about to harm people," but that like wasn't what she was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also like a good distinction of like how are people thinking about these thoughts as opposed to just like, "Oh, they had the thought, that means that I got to take action now," because that's
Yeah.
not
Like
necessarily the case.
that's not what that means. And like, I think a lot of people like trigger warning to talk about suicide for a second. I think a lot of people shy away from conversations about suicide because of that. It's
Mm,
like, oh, if you hear somebody mention suicide, that must mean that like they want to kill themselves. And it's like that's not necessarily true. You have to dig deeper. You have to ask more questions and gather
mm-hmm,
more information in order to figure out what the situation is. There's a big difference between someone saying, they would like to fall asleep and never wake up again, but have never thought about how they want to kill themselves or like have
mm-hmm.
access to the means to do so. These are very different. And you still can talk about like safety planning and like protective factors, like what are the things that like keep you here? What are the things that keep you safe? What are the things that like, encourage you every day to get out of bed? All of those things are really important conversations to have, but like it's those are just like very big distinctions. So like I think not shying away as a mental health professional, not shying away from those conversations and like asking those follow-ups because like that there's just like such a difference between those two things.
Yeah. And that's good. That's good to know. Just in, I think also just in general, like if it was a friend to friend conversation too, as in addition to like if it was a mental health professional and a client, but just like how to kind of approach those things, um, in a healthy way. Great. That's all that I have. That's great. Thank you for those great answers. That's it for brains. Should we rotten
Ooh.
tomatin?
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Let's do it.
Rotten tomatin.
Rotten tomatin.
All right. What do you think? What do you think 1977 Suspiria has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh.
68.
55.
It's a 94%. The blood pours freely in Argento's classic Suspiria, a Giallo horror as grandiose and glossy as it is gory. I mean, I just think that this has a lot to do with the fact that it's a classic, and
Yep.
and I'm assuming that most of the reviews for this were not written in 1977. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm
Wow.
wrong, but I don't know. But yeah, and the audience score is an 83%.
Okay.
All right, what do you think 2018 Suspiria has on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh God.
71.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the 70s. 76.
66.
Mm.
Its audience score is a 72. But its critics' consensus is Suspiria attacks heady themes with garish vigor, offering a viewing experience that's daringly confrontational and definitely not for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super fair.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to Letterboxd. As a reminder, Letterboxd is out of 5 with decimal points. What do you think 1977 Suspiria has out of 5? Jamie?
You said 77?
77. Yeah.
3.9.
Nikisha?
Oh. 3.2.
A 4. And some of the top reviews are me getting murdered in a neon house of horrors. Wow, I love this aesthetic.
Nice.
Another one is Sarah accidentally jumping into a pile of razor wire when it's right in front of her is a big mood.
Oh.
All right. 2018 Suspiria, what do you think this has on Letterboxd? Nikisha, you go first.
2.6.
Okay, Jamie.
A 3.1.
3.7.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, good. Okay.
I got worried.
Yeah.
So Io Edibiri wrote, to quote Mother Blanc, that's a risk.
I fucking love her, all of her
I love
reviews.
her so much.
Her reviews
good.
on Letterboxd are amazing.
Wow.
Some other good ones is, who needs to understand what the fuck is going on when the vibes are this good?
I agree.
And then another good one is, I mean, I'm not a dance expert, but I feel like these women might want to consider studying at another school.
Yes.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Cool. Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
The 4 S's are Suspiria, 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 and Suspiria.
Great.
Suspiria. It's like the dancing in classrooms. I think that it's skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. I'm going to ask you for both of the movies at the same time. So, your skulls for 77 and your skulls for 18, so on and so forth. Again, skulls is how we rank mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it, and shakes is how much will it stick with you? Can you shake it off? So Jamie, let's start with you. Go through all of those 6.
Sure. So for 2018 Skulls, I gave it a 5. Um, Mostly because I just had a hard time believing that the psychiatrist is like doing all of this investigative work.
Mm-hmm.
That just like kind of took some of it out for me. But I do think that there's other like really strong, curious performances, mostly from the girls in the school who are like, what's really going on? And like, I think that I think they would be inclined to kind of do the investigating themselves and try to figure it out. And then that ultimately leads to some of their downfalls. For 77, I gave the skulls. I gave it a skull score of 2. Because I wasn't totally sure that people were really peopling in this film. Again, I don't think that that's like really the point of it, but this is my score. This is my opinion. Don't come for me. I'm so sorry. Don't yell at me. For scares, I gave 2018 a 4. I feel like really the disturbing dancing and bodily harm that's happening is like really what bumped it up, because I don't think that this is a overly scary film. It doesn't have like too many jump scare type things.
Right.
There are some moments, especially with the music and like the soundtrack. But I think for the most part, like just the bodily things, even like the dancing is kind of like disturbing. It's just those like really sharp movements and things like that is like kind of freaky, especially seeing it go right and then seeing it go so wrong and then seeing them just go back to dancing again. It's like you're recovering from like the former creepiness, so like that really bumped it up for me. For 77, I gave it a 1. I gave it that 1 because I don't like maggots, and there were a lot of maggots.
Oof. Agreed.
And, yeah, when they were in her hair and on the ceiling and like all of that, I was like, this is icky, but it's not that scary.
Yeah,
sure.
For shakes, for 2018, I'm gonna actually increase my score. I'm gonna give it an 8 because, like I said, I saw this movie when it first came out, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And I'm really glad that I rewatched it. I just think that it is really, really powerful and weird, and just very enjoyable. For 77, I'm sorry, I gave it a lower score. I gave it a 4. But again, this is like my first Argento film, so please be kind to me. I need some time to acclimate, as I needed time to acclimate to 2018. But I can understand, even if a film is not for me, I can still understand the impact that it has on a genre and like what does this lead to. And so like I too am very curious about like what does the rest of like Argento's films look like? What does like this continue to influence? So I feel like that's important to also say.
Yeah,
don't
for sure.
be mad at me, people of the internet.
Listen, Jamie, your opinion is your opinion, and that's all that matters.
They're gonna come at me with the pitchforks.
Nope, it's okay. I'll fight them off for you. It's fine.
Aww.
We will support.
Thanks for protecting me, Nikisha.
Always, women supporting women in Women's History Month, okay? We don't play these games. And then Brian will help.
Thanks, Brian. But I've seen the Nikisha box, so I'll...
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I wouldn't trust me as much as her, so...
I will happily be the muscle in this situation because you guys are the brains. So, like, you be the brains, I'll be the muscle. It's fine.
Love it.
I'll do the sound effects. Pow, pow, pow. That's what I bring to the table.
Yes. My scores were similar to Jamie's. Actually the exact same for the skulls. I gave 77 balloons. It always comes at the most random time when I don't want it to come, and then when I do, surprise, it just doesn't want to do the things. 2 for the 77 version and a 5 for the 18 in the skulls category for the exact same reasons, because why you fall into barbed wire, girl? Like, what's the tea? Scares, for the 77, I gave it a 1. It's not scary at all. And I gave the 18 one a 3 for that dance scene and the bones cracking and everything.
Sure.
It was glorious to watch. Them bones. That will be the thing that sticks in my brain of all of this entire movie, will be that scene. It was just beautiful to watch. Shakes, I gave the 77 a 2 because I remember the colors. Every time I think of it, I'll just be like, colors. And for the 18 one, I gave it a 5 because there's some good moments in it. So yeah, I'll still remember it more than the 77 version for sure.
Skulls for 77, I gave a 2, like you all, but I gave 18 a 6. I think
Nice.
there's interesting happening stuff in there, especially the way that people handle guilt and shame in the movie. I think is pretty realistic. Um, Scares, I also gave 77 a 1, and I gave 18 a 4. And then and less about like jump scares or anything like that, like more about tone and a lot of those bodily pieces that we've talked about. And then shakes, I gave 20 shakes for 1977, I gave a 4. I didn't love it, but I will remember it because of the colors but also like just the experience I had with it in general, even though it's not my cup of tea at all. And then I gave 2018 a 9.
Nice.
I don't feel because of how dense it is. I don't feel comfortable giving it a 10 until I watch it a second time in a couple months.
Sure.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And then we already said my suggestion. It's actually a suggestion for me as well. I really want to see Bones and All.
Them bones.
Them bones and all.
Them bones. When I was watching the ritual scene, it made me think about Midsummer. So that's going to be one of my suggestions. I am now approaching suggestions as if I'm watching this movie and it makes me think of another movie, that'll be my suggestion.
No, I think that's a good, I love that.
And then when we were talking about everything, I think it was something along the lines of Dakota's character, like she always had the evil kind of in her, and then it like evolves and then it happens. It reminded me of VVH because live deliciously or whatever the guy said.
Yeah.
Would you like to live deliciously? Which
bonus track on the album.
Do they have Suspiria Funkos? I would get one.
Oh,
do they? Let's see.
Love it.
I don't know.
Suspiria.
I could just get a Rihanna one, and
then write Suspiria at the bottom.
yeah.
Fantastic. Jamie is finding out this vital information for us.
I don't think that they do, but they do have a weird resin figure set of the 77 of Susie and Marcos.
Marcos. I'm good.
That's okay.
Right.
Jamie, what are your suggestions?
So for 2018, mine was Taken. It was also the Vivitch, for the same exact reason. And for 77, I went with the only other Giallo movie that I know that I've seen, and that's Malignant.
Which we had a good time with.
Great time. Yeah, grand old time.
Yeah, that's another one I wanted to watch. Also, when you said mine was Taken,
all the time.
I was like,
oh, not.
I was like, Liam Neeson?
Me too.
Not Liam Neeson Taken, but
maybe
fantastic. Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. Maybe if they do a horror version of Taken, which that would be interesting to watch.
I mean, this just a pretty. I watched it recently, like rewatched it. It's pretty freaky.
Yeah, and
I will say,
and very gruesome. Yeah, at times. So that's fine. We'll just the next one, the horror one, will be Liam Neeson going up against witches and ghosts and stuff to like grab his stepchild. I don't know.
That sounds great.
But yes. All right, that wraps up our episode of the Suspiria's double feature. You can follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Talk Horror Pod, Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. So you can find us on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Hey.
Also on things like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Thank you.
What should we end on, Brian? You gotta sing.
Suspiria. You gotta get all those witches out. Suspiria. You gotta stomp at the dancing. Bum bum bum
Dee-dum,
bum
bum,
bum.
bum,
There
dee-dum,
witches.
bum.
Yep, there it is.
Witches. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.